So first of all, we're not going to be talking about getting aliyahs, who gets prioritized aliyahs, because that's really a separate shiur, and we'll be able to do that another time. There's a whole different section in Shulchan Aruch, more in Orach Chaim, that deals with that subject. But tonight we're going to speak about who gets the amud, who leads the davening, and indeed, is there even an imperative to lead the davening? And as we'll see, there is. There is actually a reason to lead the davening, and most of that discussion is contained in Yoredeya, not in Orach Chaim. A little bit in Orach Chaim, but mostly in Yoredeya. And it's based on a very lengthy Ramah in Siman Shin Ayin Vav, which is expanded upon by the later Achronim, and so we're going to use that as our guide. What is very important for all of us to know is that the minhag, both of taking the amud and of saying Kaddish altogether, is a minhag. And what that means is that in the times of the Gemara, this was not known. This minhag was not in practice. There is a medrash that talks about a child saying Kaddish for a parent, but it seems to be it's not what we would call a mainstream medrash that is rooted in the primary corpus of Talmudic literature. We all know of that medrash of Rabbi Akiva encountering a man carrying an inordinate load on his back, and Rabbi Akiva bringing a tikkun for that person who it turned out was an apparition, was a ghost of a dead man who was forced to wander the earth with a heavy load because his son was unlearned. And by teaching his son Aleph Beis and having him say Kaddish, Rabbi Akiva was able to get an aliyah for that person's neshama. That's the sole basis for saying Kaddish. But from that grew a tremendous amount of minhagic literature, not halachic literature, but minhagic literature. I probably just made up that word. The point being, and it's very important for us to remember that when you're dealing with minhag, it's not worthwhile to fight over it. It's just not worthwhile. It's not worthwhile to fight over most things. But certainly something that is minhag related and is not rooted in strict halacha, even though it's a minhag Yisrael, but it's not worth fighting, and I'm going to get to that shortly. But the source is really the Maharil. The Maharil is one of the earliest poskim in Ashkenaz. So many of these things that we know about Kaddish don't even have a basis in Sephardic communities. But the primary source is this Ramah. The Mechaber doesn't even address the custom of reciting Kaddish and taking the amud for a relative. So let's take a look at the Ramah. This is after the Mechaber's statement in Sif Daled, which really has to do with the Shiva process. The Ramah takes it further. The Ramah says as follows, source number 1, the Ramah in Siman Shin Ayin Vav Sif Daled. V'nimtza b'midrashos lomar Kaddish al Av. It is found in the Midrashim that a person should say Kaddish for a parent. Al Kain, and he quotes the Kolbo, the Rivash, the Tanchuma, the Sifri, the Bechaya in the name of Maseches Kala, the Beis Yosef in the name of the Zohar, the Or Zaru in the name of Tana Devei Eliyahu. So there are various legitimate midrashim that bear this out. Al Kei Nohagu Lomer Al Av Ve'em Kaddish Basra Yud Beis Chodesh. Let's look at his language very carefully. Therefore, the minhag is to say the final Kaddish of davening, the final Kaddish, for a mother and a father for 12 months. V'chein nohagu lahaftir b'navi. It is also a minhag to get maftir in the navi, meaning to recite the haftorah. Ulehispalel arvit b'motzei shabbatot shehu hazman shechozim haneshamos legehenim. Now he doesn't say, first of all, how often it is a minhag to recite the haftorah. He doesn't say do it only right after they pass away. He doesn't say do it during all 12 months. It's very nondescript. He just says it's a minhag to get the haftorah at some point when you're an avel, when you're reciting Kaddish. And it is also a minhag to lead the davening for Ma'ariv on Motzoi Shabbos. Why specifically that time? Because that is the time when the neshamas return back to Gehenim. Because based on the medrash that says, that's the reason why we say Vihi Noam on Saturday nights, it's sort of consoling those neshamas who in their lifetimes were Shomer Shabbos. If they have to go to Gehenim during the first year, they get respite on Shabbos. There's a medrash in Maseches Gehenim that says that even though Gehenim is described as a place of burning, on Shabbos they get to cool off. They go to a mountain, snowy mountain resort on Shabbos, and then they have to return back to Gehenna, to the fires of Gehenna on Motzai Shabbos. So in order to protect them for the coming week, it is appropriate for the Avel to daven Ma'ariv in their honor, to give them that added zuchus. Ucheshahabein mispalel umekadesh barabim poda avaviim min hagehenim. And as he quotes from the Kolbo, that when a son or davens for the Amud and sanctifies God's name publicly, he redeems his father and mother from Gehenna. V'noagu lomar, so we're on the third line now of the Ramah. V'noagu lomar kaddish al ha'em afal pi sheha'av chay adayin eno biyado limchos livno shelo yomar kaddish al imo. He then quotes the Beis Yosef, who says that let's say a man's mother passes away, but the father is still alive. The father says, I don't want you to say Kaddish because I'm superstitious, and I don't want my son to say Kaddish in my lifetime. The father cannot prevent the son from saying Kaddish for his mother. Now, next point. Mitzvah lihisanos b'yom shemes av o'em. It is a mitzvah to fast on the day of the yortzeit. Right? That's the minhag of fasting on the yortzeit. So how that turned into doing a tikkun with schnapps and herring, right? So it turned around by the Hasidim. Okay, fine. But the point is that I see people chalashing for the Amud, but I don't see people chalashing to fast on a yortzeit. But it's in the same halacha. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Okay, it's just interesting how minhagim evolve. Shlosha achin v'ish nachri. Now, in order to understand this next part of the Ramah, it's important to know that originally the minhag was that there were 4 Kaddishes during Shacharis in total, and one person alone was allowed to say Kaddish. He couldn't say Kaddish in unison with other Avelim, and that is really the more correct way to say Kaddish, because after all, we have a general principle of Trei Kali Lo Mishtamoy. 2 voices really can't be heard properly at the same time. And whenever the Gemara or the later Rishonim talk about saying Kaddish, they're talking about one person saying Kaddish. There are still minyanim and kehilos that have this minhag. The Ezra's Torah Shul in where I used to live in Yerushalayim has that minhag. It's a minhag vasikim. It's a very ancient minhag, and they will only allow one person at a time to say Kaddish. I remember I was saying Kaddish once for a cousin, and I didn't know. So I took the first Kaddish, then I took the second Kaddish, and someone went over to me and just said, no, you don't understand our minhagim here. You're not supposed to do that. And I wasn't even a member of the shul. So I felt very bad afterwards. So there are certain shuls, they only allow one individual to say Kaddish, and the minhag was that there were 4 Kaddishes every Shacharis. So if there's 4 Kaddishes and you have more than 4 Avelim, so you have problems, right? So we're going to talk about that. But the example that he gives is, Shlosha achin v'ish nachri, hashlosha achin notlin hashlosha kadishim ve'echad notol kadish echad. So the Ramah just wants to clarify for us that it doesn't go according to the number of decedents, it goes according to the number of mourners. So if there are 4 mourners and only 2 decedents, because 3 of the mourners are brothers, they are still entitled to 3 out of the 4 Kaddishes. Okay, it's not, you don't split it 50-50. You split, the 3 brothers get 3, and the one gets 1. V'noagu she'im magia la'adam yom shemes ba'ava v'imo she'omrim aleihem kaddish yasam la'olam. And furthermore, on the yortzeit, you say Kaddish every year on the yortzeit in perpetuity. Umishi yodea lihispalel kol hatfila mispalel. Then he writes that if someone is capable of leading the entire davening as an avil on the yortzeit, he should do so. V'im yesh avelim acherim noagu. So, well, let's say there are other avelim, and this guy has a yortzeit, but another fellow is an avelus. He doesn't say avelus could mean either during Shiva, it can mean during Shloshim, or it can mean during the 12 months. So he says like this: Noagu shetoch Shiva le'avelam heim kodmim. So he says the minhag is as follows: a person in Shiva trumps yortzeit. Okay, it's like the
in the house or even in the shul.
Even in the shul, he's not talking about the house. He's talking about a shul now. Any time where there's public prayer, it seems to me he doesn't qualify it in any way. So he says the minhag is that person saying davening, leading the davening during Shiva, trumps. It's like the royal flush over the other guy's full house, right? So So that trumps the yard site. Ve'ein lo kaddish klal. And therefore, even though there's 4 kaddishim, the guy in Shiva gets all 4 kaddishes, and the guy who has yard site gets 0. Okay? Toch shloshim yesh lo kaddish echad. If the avil is in the shloshim past Shiva, so then the guy in shloshim gets 3 kaddishes, and the yard site gets 1 kaddish. La'achar shloshim kol hakadishim shel oso hayom hem shelo. But if it's only in the midst of Yud Beis Chodesh, he's past the shloshim, so all of the kaddishes go to the guy with yard site. That's the prioritization. So clearly, yard site, according to the Ramah, trumps a guy who's in the middle of the first year, unless it's within shloshim. Okay? And even then, being in shloshim doesn't completely override yard site, it only partially overrides yard site. And that's an important point that we'll see in the poskim. Umonim shiva v'lamed miyom hakvura afal pi shlosham ha'avel miyad. The Maril writes that how do you calculate shiva and shloshim? It's not from the day the guy finds out about the death of his parent, but from the date of burial. And that was very common, that a person might not discover that his parent was dead and buried until much later. So that's just a qualifying statement. V'im nochrihu ke'echad mibnei ha'ir le'inyan kaddish zu. Now here's the question of membership that Harold said, right? What if a guy is a stranger? He's not part of the kehillah. He's not part of the kehillah. What is his status as far as his rights to kaddish? Does he have the same rights if he has yard site? Can he take the amud? Holchim achar haminhag. The Ramah says you follow the minhag of the makam. And every kehillah has a right to establish its own minhag. Okay? Ve'ein makom lekadish zu ela al av ve'ein bilvad avalo b'shar krovim. Now he quotes the Or Zarua, says something earth-shattering. He says, no one has rights of kaddish unless you're saying kaddish for a parent. But if you're saying kaddish for anyone other than a parent, a sibling or a child, then you do not have trumping rights to trump anyone for kaddish. Not even one kaddish you get. Okay? Just bear that in mind. V'im ein beveis hakneses avel al aviv v'imo, omer oso kaddish mi she'ein lo av v'eim ba'ad kol meisei Yisrael. Now he says that if there is no one in Avelus who's saying kaddish for a parent, then the kaddish should be recited by someone who doesn't have a mother or father on behalf of all of the dead of Israel. Now this is an important halacha as well.
Kaddish, the last kaddish?
Well, he doesn't say the last kaddish, but that is our minhag, and that's brought down in many places. In Orach Chaim as well, the Ramah talks about that. So the common misnomer is that people think that if there's no one saying kaddish, you don't say, if there's no one who's in Avelus, you don't say kaddish. It's not true. Kaddish was instituted to be said after Aleinu. Period. Nikuda. Who do we give that kaddish to? Who has who's zoiche to say that kaddish? Someone who's in Avelus. It's not the other way around, that we have kaddish so that an avel can say kaddish. Kaddish was niskan after Aleinu. Period. To be recited at the end of tefillah. If there's no one who has a chiyuv, so to speak, to say kaddish because there's no avelim, someone who doesn't have parents should say kaddish yatom for all of the other dead of Klal Yisrael. So that's the idea, and that's the reason why you may have noticed in many instances, like if we're davening at a chuppah or something like that, and no one's saying kaddish, I'll elbow some guy and I'll say, "No, Harold, you say kaddish, right?" Or whoever else is able to say kaddish. Okay, next.
What about in yeshiva?
I don't know the pshat. I don't know the pshat. Do you remember in yeshiva they didn't?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm thinking back, what do they do in it's fine, like when the boys daven, if there's nobody to say kaddish?
It's a very good question. I don't have an answer offhand. It could be because of the practicality issues that maybe there are people there. Maybe all of the rebbeim are young and they all have their parents, and all the kids have all their parents, and maybe they don't want to recite kaddish in that case.
So you said before that the halachas kaddish was Sukan after Aleinu Nekuda, period.
Right.
Does that mean that, if we don't,
But you see, the Ramah writes, he says, Omer oto kaddish mi she'ein lo av va'em. Because there are many times if a parent is makpid, then I'm not allowed to say kaddish. So I guess maybe in that case it's an anus case where you can't say kaddish maybe. By the way, if a parent grants permission to allow you to say Kaddish, you're allowed to say Kaddish. But it could be, Taka, in that situation, let's say a Rebbe in the yeshiva knows that there are no other Rebbeim who have lost a parent. Could be Taka, he should get rishus from his parents, mommy and daddy, can I say Kaddish so that I can be Mezaka the Rabbim to have a final Kaddish after davening? Could be, I don't know. Now, V'yesh mekomo shenagu sheshar krovim omrim kaddish al kroveim kishe'ein avelam al aviyam v'ima. So now the Ramah qualifies this further, and he says that there are places, there are communities, where a person saying kaddish for a non-parent, let's say a sibling or a child, is granted permission to have one of the kaddishes, provided that there are no people who are avelam for parents. So we could even theoretically give him all of the kaddishes if he's the only person saying kaddish. But he can't go up against a person saying Kaddish for a parent. Okay? V'yesh mekomos, shafilu yesh avelam alavim v'imam omim shar krovim elashosim pshara beinehem shein omim kolkach kadishim kamo halavelam al ha'aveim. And there are even other places where they give even more rights to a person who's reciting Kaddish for a non-parent. And they will say to that person, we will give you rights to say several Kaddishes. Just that if there's another person who's saying Kaddish for a parent, that person saying Kaddish for a parent has to have more Kaddishes than you to demonstrate that he has of a higher priority than you. So that seems to be more of the prevalent minhag, at least in many of our communities, where we do give rights of Kaddish and we do give rights of taking the Amud, as we'll talk about later on, to someone who's saying Kaddish, let's say, for a brother. V'holchen b'chol zeh achar ha-minhag. And then finally the Ramah says, you go according to the community minhag in all of these matters, provided that there's a consistent minhag. I'm glad Marvin's here because Marvin likes consistency, right? Right. I'm saying, you gotta go according to the rules, right? You gotta follow the rule book, okay? So there's got to be a consistent minhag. Now he then continues and he says, "V'ha'avelim omrim kaddish afilu b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov." He says, and there is a differentiation now between reciting Kaddish versus taking the Amud on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Avelim say Kaddish on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but they don't take the Amud on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Af al pi she'ein iser b'davar, even though it wouldn't theoretically be prohibited for them to take the Amud, but the minhag is for them not to. It could have to do with the idea of Simchas Hayom. I didn't really research this particular facet as to why that is. Aval biyamos hachol, but that being said, during the weekday, mishi yodei lihispalel yispalel. But if someone knows how to lead the davening, he should lead the davening. What if you don't know how to lead the davening? Should you lead the davening anyway? It's a good shaila. We have that question come up quite a bit. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, v'yoser moil mikadish yasam shelo niskan elo lekatanim. Now, but listen to what he says now. This is really an important statement. He says, it is more important for an adult to lead the davening than it is for an adult to say Kaddish for a parent. Why is that? Because really, Kaddish was originally instituted for minors who don't have the same level of literacy as adults. So a literate adult can lead the davening. A child may not have the faculties to lead the whole davening, and that's why the rabbis instituted Kaddish. It's a small, short prayer that even a minor can say to elevate the neshama of a loved one. And if a person doesn't have the level of proficiency to do the entire davening, let's say for Shacharis, he should at least lead from Ashrei and onwards, the second Ashrei until the end of davening.
Why doesn't he say Ashrei? Why do you say Ashrei?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe because the word Ashrei would be ambiguous. Because which Ashrei are you talking about? I don't know. It's a good question. I didn't even notice that. Now, v'noagu she'ein omrim kaddish u'tfila rak yud aleph chadashim k'dei shelo yasu aviyim v'imam rishoim k'mishpat rasha yud beis chadash. The minhag that we've spoken about quite a bit in previous shiurim is the minhag only to recite Kaddish for a parent for 11 months and not 12, because thus, if you'd said it for a full 12, you'd be implying that they were bad people who needed a full 12 months of expiation in Gehenna. Now, v'im hayu avelim kanu bo achar kach avelim acherim, Hashniyim yesh lehem hakadishim v'hatfilos kol lamed yom miyom hakvura afal pi shelo shamu. Now, he says, if you have new people who come and join the Kehillah, they have the same rights as people who have been in the Kehillah for an established period of time. He says, there's no such thing as, well, I've been here 10 years, you've only been here a month, so I have Kedim over you. He says, it doesn't work that way. And if they're in the midst of Shloshim, they take priority over the people who are long-established people. And I think also what he's saying is that a person may be in the midst of Yud Beis Chodesh, and now another person becomes a brand new Avel. His Shloshim trumps the guy who's in Yud Beis Chodesh, even though he was davening consistently every day before this guy came along. Now, Yesh Omrim Demumar Sheneherag Biad Oivdei Kochavim Banav Omrim Alav Kaddish, and some say that if a mummer was killed al Kiddush Hashem because he was a Jew, I'm understanding what he's saying, his children would still say Kaddish for him, even though it could be that a mummer under normal circumstances who dies of natural causes, his children should not say Kaddish. But in this kind of instance that he was killed al Kiddush Hashem, mistama, he had some kind of expiation of his life, and therefore the children should say Kaddish. Now, that's the Ramah. The Pischei Tshuva on this Ramah writes as follows. He on the halacha of how to divide up the Kaddishes when you have 4 people and 4 Kaddishes, and he said that if there's 3 brothers and 1 non-brother, so each one gets 1 Kaddish. So he writes like this: Ayin b'shailos utshuvas divrei igeres simin zayin shehu zal b'medinaso tikein shekol ha'avelim yomru kulam Kaddish yachad ayin sham tamo v'nimuko. He says, I refer you to this tshuva of this early Acharon who says that all the mourners should say Kaddish together. And apparently, as we'll see from the language of the Aruch HaShulchan and the Chachmas Adam, it was because it just became too unwieldy. People started fighting. And in order to avoid machloikas, they just said, okay, everyone's just say it together. Now, this raises another shaila in halacha. When people are saying Kaddish in unison, what if they're out of sync, which they shouldn't be, but let's say they are. So to which one do you answer Amen in Yehei Shmei Rabbah? So he says, Va'ayin b'shailos utshuvas hilchos ketanos, shenishal lefa'amim omrim gimel v'dalet b'nei adam Kaddish b'yachad, ve'echad maktim l'chaveiro im mi ya'aneh Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. He says, when they're out of sync, whose Amen do you answer to first? The guy who finished first, or the guy who finishes in the middle, the guy who finishes last? Ve'heishiv im boim kol echad toich kedei dibur shel chaveiro ya'aneh im harishon. He says, if they're all toch kedei dibur, they're all like within 3 words of each other, so then you answer to the first one. V'im yesh hefsek beineihem ya'aneh achar kol echad ve'echad ayin sham. But if there's a longer pause between them, you should answer to each and every one separately. Okay? Now let's take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan. And we're not going to see the entire text of the Aruch HaShulchan, but, wait a minute. I did some markings on this one, sorry. Okay. So the Aruch HaShulchan, we're just going to see the first couple of lines of the Aruch HaShulchan, then we'll see the last few lines, because he quotes the Ramah in the middle. But in the Aruch HaShulchan, Sif Tes Zayin of that Siman, he writes as follows: B'dinei chalukos kadishim mikoidem, yesh minhagim ve'ein lazeh ikar badin. He says that beferish, right? He says there are various minhagim as to who takes priority as saying Kaddish, but there is no basis for this in din. It's all minhag. So don't have a cow. Don't get your what do they call that? Don't get your panties in a twist, right? Don't get your shorts in a knot. It's not worth getting upset about it. Ule'inyan lihispalel lifnei ha'amud mi shehu yoter mirutze yitpalel. He says, and as far as who takes the amud, whoever is most desirable to that kahal, that's the person who takes priority, which is a very surprising statement, because after all of the Ramah has said, he sort of says, well, all of that being said, but let's say one guy is well liked for his davening, and the other guy, they can't wait to
finishing.
Yeah, okay, right? So he says, whoever's Yoser Merutza Lakahol is the one who takes priority. Ve'ata kulam ormim Kaddish ki efshar lechalek beineihem. And nowadays we say Kaddish because we can't properly distribute them to everyone, and it's getting out of hand. And then he quotes the Ramah, who talks about the prioritization of davening and the prioritization of Kaddishes. So if you jump down, after he quotes the Ramah, and he says, Ulefi zeh, according to what the Ramah has said, Ben Zayin Kodem Lakol, a person who's in Shiva trumps everyone as far as taking the Amud. Uben Lamed Im Yortzeit Yesh Machloikes Mi Kodem. If you have a conflict between Shloshim and Yortzeit, it's a machlokes. If you remember, the Ramah said that the Shloshim guy gets 3 out of the 4 Kaddishes, but the Yortzeit gets 1 Kaddish. So it's, right, even though it's more heavily siding with the Shloshim guy, but the Yortzeit is not chopped liver either. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, if you look in the earlier sources, you'll see that there's 2 sides to this argument. V'kasvu debiyom shemafsik milomar kaddish kol hakadishim shel oso hayom heim shelo v'rak nosden liyortzeit kaddish echad. He says that they write on the day that he finishes his shloshim, all of the kaddishes belong to the guy with shloshim. That's the way he's interpreting the halacha from the earlier sources that the Ramah is citing. V'rak nosden liyortzeit kaddish echad. V'nira degam leven lamed nosdim kaddish echad. And therefore it would seem to me that you give to the fellow who is in the midst of shloshim 1 kaddish as well. So therefore he's basically saying it's sort of equal. They're sort of equal. The shloshim guy, a fellow who's in the midst of shloshim versus a fellow who's got yortzeit. So you should give each one of them their own kaddish, and the rest you can divide. Now if you take a look at the Chachmas Adam, in Klal Kuf Ayin Aleph, Rav Danziger of the 18th century, early 19th century writes as follows. If you start from the second line, the last 4 words, he says, V'chein b'chol yom arvis sha'az tigbores hadin. So he writes as follows. He first quotes the Ramah as saying that there's a minhag for an avel to recite the final Kaddish, and also to take the Amid on Motzoi Shabbos at Ma'ariv. And then he adds one extra facet, which he says, B'chol Yom Arvis. He says every Ma'ariv, there's a special advantage for an Avel to take the Amud, specifically by Ma'ariv more so than by Shacharis and Mincha. Why is that? Sha'az Tigbores Hadin. Because that's really when there's a strong din, and you want to be able to counteract the harsh judgment of Hashem and counteract that with something that will protect the decedent. Umikol makom ein hatfila shayach la'avelim. But he says, but the bottom line is that no one can say they have a right to lead the davening. Now, in the Bar Ilan CD, there's sort of like in the bracketed area, it says, Keta shahaya b'dfus rishon v'hushmat mikol adfusim. The following text was part of the original printing of the Chachmas Adam, and it was deleted for some reason. So he puts it back in and he writes, Umikol makom ein hatfila shayach la'avelim, ela lemi sheyirtza hatzibur lihispalel. Same thing as the Aruch HaShulchan writes. No Avel can say, it's my zchus, I have a right to daven. The Chachmas Adam, like the Aruch HaShulchan says, the Kahal can say, sorry Charlie. The Kahal can say, we're very sorry, we appreciate the fact that it is your chiyuv, but forgive us, you're not merutza to our Kahal, and therefore we cannot have you daven for us. You want to take lessons, you want to learn, go to the Indy 500 and learn how to be a stock car racer, and maybe come back afterwards, you'll know how to go fast. But anyway, for whatever reason, you're not merutza to us, and we have a right to refuse you. That's essentially what he's writing. The only thing that an Avel does have a right, where he says you cannot refuse me, is the right to recite Kaddish. No one can turn away a guy and say you cannot recite Kaddish here because you're too slow. They can say, we don't want you to daven for us, you're mispronouncing words, you're going too slow, you're going too fast, but they cannot turn down a Kaddish. V'yesh l'tzibur behem zchus v'nagu lomer Kaddish al ha'em afal pi shavchai, okay, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Before we go any further, there's a whole sefer called Divrei Sofrim, which goes through all of the laws of Avelus, and he's got an entire chapter on davening before the Amud during the Yud Beis Chodesh. I want to go through that as much as we can, but before we do that, because we may run out of time, I want us to see a beautiful shtickle that I found from the Vishnitzer Rav, who was just nifter last year, Vishnitzer Rebbe writes a very interesting point as follows. Just incidentally, while he's giving a drasha in Parshas Maseh, he writes the following words, and this was a public address that he gave. It's on the very back of your packet. He writes, this is from Rav Mordechai Hager, the Admor of Vishnitz, and he writes as follows. Uvihiyosi bazeh, now that I'm on this topic, he says, A'orer be'inyan habeis medrash. Dekvar amarti berabim klapi osam anoshim shemakpidim kishehem avelim lo aleinu lihispala lifnei ha'amud. He says, we know about people in our beis medrash who, when they're avelim or when they have yartzeit lo aleinu, that they insist on taking the amud. He says, "O kisheyesh lahem yartzeit sheyesh lahem mesiras nefesh lalos lamaftir." Like, or if a person has yartzeit, they are moser nefesh. He says to make sure that they get the maftir. Hine etzleinu lo haya bichlal inyan la'alos lamaftir b'shabbos shekodem hayartzeit. He says it was never our minhag in Vishnitz to this minhag of having the maftir on the Shabbos before the yartzeit. Uvichlal lo garbim bazetina belev klapi acherim ein kedai kol hadavar. And he says uvichlal im garbim bazetina belev klapi acherim. If this creates resentment within other people, then it's not worth it. It's not a good thing to do. V'haneshama tekabel aleha gam belize aliyah. Gam belize. And believe me, he says, the neshama will get an aliyah without you going up to do maftir. And what I think he's implying is that if you do the maftir and people are resentful, the opposite will probably happen. That's my interpretation, and that's what I try to tell other people as well. V'chein b'nogea lihispala lifnei ha'amud. And the same thing is true when you're leading the davening. Ein kedai machmazeh lasos kama minyanim. He says, first of all, it's not kedai to have a breakaway minyan to be able to make sure that everyone can lead the amud. This is not kedai. He says, ki barovam hadras melech. He says, because there's a din of barovam. And this is the Vishnitzer Rebbe speaking. You think, if anyone's going to say, like I remember davening in the Vishnitzer Shtibel in Sanhedrin Mercheva, there was a minyan every 10 minutes. You could catch another minyan, like, the minyan factory. But the Vishnitzer Rav hat gesagt, it's not kedai. If it's the whole purpose is to have more people have the amud, you're breaking up a rovam hadras melech. It's not worth it. It's yatzis charo be'efseda. Udelo kamo sheyesh shechoshvim shemi she'eno mispala lifnei ha'amud yesh bazeh ize giraon. He says, it's not like people think that if I don't daven for the amud, it's like the worst thing in the world. It's like a disaster if I don't take the amud on my yartzeit. He says, va'afilu kisheyesh lo yartzeit bo bayom. He says, and that's true even if you have yartzeit on that day. Don't make a breakaway minyan. Don't create machloikes. Mikol makom imigrom ein shtickle machloikes. Shuv ein kedai kol ha'inyan. He says, even if you make even a shtickle of machloikes, what would you define as a shtickle? I guess it depends if you ask the Hungarians. What's a shtickle machloikes? Simi?
No such thing as a shtickle machloikes in Hungarian.
Everything's a federal case, right? He says, so you can imagine, even if it's just a shtickle machlokes, the whole thing is not kedai anymore. He says, I know of places, I don't, but he knows. He knows of places, he says, where even when it's the day of your yartzeit, they don't give you automatically the zechus to lead the davening. Udvarim elu eina meha anyanim shetzarech ha'adam limsor nafsho aleihem ve'ein bazeh mishum yaharig val yavor. He says, these are not things that you have to be moser nefesh for. There's no yaharig val yavor that you have to give up your life in order to take the amud on the yartzeit.
But the fact that you have to say this implies that the practice in Vishnitz was not there.
Of course, that's what the Admor is there for. He's to get people realigned to reality. He says, of course it gets out of hand.
I don't think this is the practice in Vishnitz today. If you go to Vishnitz, the monastery there's like 10 different fucking groshim and...
All right, listen, it could be he's talking about his particular base medrash. I don't know. But he's basically saying, in our building, don't make a breakaway minyan just because you have a chiyuv on a yartzeit. That's not, you're breaking up a rovam hadras melech.
I don't think this is with the practice.
Whether they listen to him or not, I don't know. But Azoy
The fact
Hat,
that he had to say it like
yeah,
implies that
Yeah.
it's part of it.
The
But you're saying in Klein Park on the Motzei Shabbos, there were 20 minyanim. Because everybody had yurtzai.
Split up as many tens as they could make. You have your say next week, everyone wanted it.
Okay, so, but you understand that this is not something that is, there's no Yahorg Val Yavar, there's no Chiyuv, right? I mean, people, we use the word Chiyuv, it's a misnomer. You shouldn't even say, I have a Chiyuv. You don't have a Chiyuv, you have a minhag. That's what you should say. I have a minhag.
And the irony is the guys that were really enforcing this were the guys from Europe, the guys from the whole country.
Yeah, but they weren't B'nai
Not us as
Yeshiva.
much.
They weren't B'nai Yeshiva. They may have gone to, they were the survivors who never had the ability to go off to yeshiva. So they just knew what they were doing in the Alter Heim. They didn't necessarily know all of the ins and outs of what the origins of this were. They just knew what from the memetics of remembering what they had seen.
They
right?
thought it was life or death.
They thought it was life or death, and especially if you're a survivor, how could you not take the Yomid for someone who perished in the Shoah? And that was like the ultimate insult, you know. So it's obviously very sensitive, you know. It's very, very sensitive. But for us, you know, we can take a little bit of a step back, perhaps,
For sure.
and we can be a little bit more circumspect and more intellectual about the whole thing.
In keeping with what we learned previously with the whole notion of a kaddish, we see that the concept is, chap another kaddish, and we spoke about this, and
Let's go
we
back.
said, right?
We saw from Rav Henkin, who was very opposed to saying multiple
It's not
Kaddishes.
I mean, it's not,
Right.
the idea is not how many more you
Right.
can have.
Rav Henkin felt you're cheapening Kaddish by saying it so many times.
Why do we do it between Min Kamar?
To do a Kaddish de Rabbanan. Yeah, so there's an Inyan to say a Kaddish de Rabbanan once a day in the afternoon. Listen, that's how all of these minhagim get
Our
started.
minhag in the morning after Minyan started, a number of years ago, started that we do the Dvar Halacha so that we can hop around another Kaddish.
Right,
That's,
for the people who came late.
No, that was.
no,
It
no.
was a Rabbanan Kaddish for the people who didn't say the Rabbanan Kaddish after Rabbi Yishmael.
You have to differentiate between them, there's a difference.
Kaddish Yatom and Kaddish Rabbanan.
Kaddish Rabbanan, isn't there?
Is there,
Kaddish Yosem has a different.
it has a different
way,
nusach.
and Kaddish Rabbanan has a different.
Yeah, but as far as the effect that it has on the niftar, I don't know necessarily. I mean, ein lanu esek b'nistaros, right? But there's a sentimentality that I should be able to say the Kaddish de Rabbanan once in the morning and once in the evening. That's what
Because you're
people.
learning also. I mean,
Yeah,
the learning
yeah.
thing is not on the Shabbos, it's the learning.
Right, right.
Even in
Okay.
the movies in Hollywood, they say Kaddish always, at a Jewish funeral. I always see that.
Okay.
That's a funeral.
That's all right. Start crying.
Always in the movies.
But that's part of the funeral.
Okay,
Funeral, yes.
okay. I had to come to Toronto to hear what they do in Hollywood. Okay, anyway. Let's take a look at the Divrei Sofrim, okay? So it's a modern sefer. It's published about 20 years ago, the Divrei Sofrim, and it's Rav Nachum Yavruv. It's got a lot of very, very pertinent minhagim. But remember, all of this is in the realm of minhag. You have to remember, like when you read Sfarim like this, and they tell you this is what is done, this is the protocol, it's not etched in stone like other halachas, like Hilchas Shabbos. It's really, it's minhag. And therefore, a shul has the right to establish minhagim that are not consistent with what's written in any particular sefer. Okay? So, let's see how we're doing with time. Okay. So, he starts off with this. Source number 5. Kishahabein mispalu mekadesh barabim poda avivimu min hagehenem kimo amru chazal bra mizaka abba lachen mishi yadei lihispalal yispalal. When a son davens and sanctifies God's name publicly, he provides merit and salvation for a parent. And therefore, if he knows how to daven, it's preferred that he should. Avil al shar krovim ein chayav liyispalel. But if he's an avil on other relatives, there's no obligation for him to daven. As you note, the minhag here is that if someone's in shloshim, even for a sibling, we do give him the yomid. Okay, and we'll get to that when we get to the Gabai's handbook shortly. Gimel. V'hatfila mo'eles yoser mikadish. Hein mitzad atfila atzma, ve'hein mitzad hakadosh v'habaruch hu shebesoch atfila shu ikar hakadosh v'habaruch hu, v'ikanami mitzvah tfei b'tfila mibakadosh. He says tfila is more efficacious than saying kaddish, as you saw from the Ramah, because tfila contains within it a lot of more faith affirmations. It has the baruch hu, and it has the Shmona Esrei.
Yeah, they said the Kaddish is made for kids.
And it has Kaddish in it as well anyway. So you're covering all your bases when you lead the Amud. And Kaddish is for the children, right? And also, okay, anyway, Dalit. Kishahu mispalel Now this is an important thing. He says, "Kishehu mispala lo yechavein b'tfilaso shemispalal kidei lasos nachas ruach l'neshama ulahatzilo medina shel gehenim u'mechibat hakever." He says, when you're davening, your intention should not be, I am hereby leading the davening to save my parents' neshama from a judgment in Gehenna. That should not be what you're thinking. Ela hatfila tihiyeh below shum peniya ela l'shem shamayim. Prayer has to be not for a quid pro quo. That's not real tefillah. I mean, it's not really a high-level tefillah. It's a low-level tefillah. If you're davening so that you get back from God a Yeshua for your parents, that's really, you're asking God quid pro quo. Here, I'll give you my public tefillah, you give me an aliyah for the neshama. That's not really right. It has to be l'shem shamayim. Rak sheyachol lechavein shemitzvah zu she'ani oseh tia lizchus nishmas aviv u'imo. But after the fact, you should say to yourself, halavai, that the mitzvah that I just performed of devoting myself devotionally, worshipfully to my Lord should have a side effect, should have a side benefit of creating an aliyas neshama. And the same thing is true by any mitzvah that you're doing for an aliyas neshama. Don't have the quid pro quo in mind. So who's he quoting from here? He's quoting from the Shulchan Aruch itself. And he writes there, no, I'm sorry, Siman Shinayin Vav Divrei Sofrim Sifkat and Sadi Ches. Okay, he quotes a whole bunch of sources for that. Anyway, next, hey. Harama Kasav Shenagu She'ein Ha'avel Mispala Rak Yud Alav Chadashim K'dei Shelo Yasu Avim V'imam Rishon Kimish B'Rosh Begenim Yud Beis Chodesh Uvamati Ephraim Kasav Shirshai Lispal Af La'achar Yud Alav Chodesh. So the Rama writes Kaddish is only for 11 months, not for 12. But as far as leading the davening, the Mate Ephraim writes it's all for all 12 months.
So if there's no other clue, there's an inyan to daven.
Yeah. Even though you've stopped saying Kaddish.
But we
Correct.
don't do that.
Because there's always somebody else.
When a guy's done, he's always.
I don't know.
No, that's not true. There was only, I remember the 645 meeting, there were certain people who were good daveners, and they were the people. No, I'm just saying.
If
there
there's
were-
But we never send a guy up 11 and a half months.
What? There was nobody else,
Why not?
right?
I mean, it would be like sending him anyway.
And then he quotes from the Shevet HaLevi, who writes, he says, Uveshut Shevet HaLevi Kasav, Kachani Ragil Lahoros. My minhag is to rule as follows. She'im Rotzel Yitpala Liprokim Lifnei Ha'amud. He says, during the 12th month, occasionally, don't do it every day, but occasionally during the 12th month, daven for the Amud. De bevadei gam Rama moide de'ein avel asr liyo Shliach Tzibur b'chodesh hayud beis, ela sha'asr lahara sha'osa mipnei haniftar v'ol liprakim sha'af mi she'en avel mispala liprakim nira demutter. He says, during the 12th month, you shouldn't demonstrate that you're doing it for the sake of the niftar, because then you're implying that the niftar needs the additional month. So just do it occasionally. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Ezet filos mispalim. What do you have a right to lead? So bedoros kodim lo hayu avel mispalim lifnei hamad rak omrim kaddish v'chinu minhag asfardim hayom. He says in the earlier generations, the avel had no din of zuchus to take the amud, and that's the minhag of Sfardim today as well. Umikol makom hayu mispalim b'motzoi shabbaso shuzman shechozim hanashamas legehenim. The only minhag that used to exist in earlier generations was only Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos, because the neshamas are going back to Gehenna. And like the Chachmas Adam wrote, that other communities had a minhag of every Ma'ariv, but not Shacharis and Mincha. Aval hayom mispalim ha'avelim ha'ashkenazim es kol gimel ha'tfilot, arvis Shacharis and Mincha, he says that now minhag Ashkenaz is for the Avel to take all three. But if you can only take one, your best bet is to take Ma'ariv.
Which is interesting, because Ma'ariv is Rishus, and yet
Yes,
that's
because of what? Of Tigbores Adin, like he just said. That's the time when the nifter could use it, could get the most benefit from it.
Is that the reason why we have the meeting in a shul of a topics that if there's a shloshim, but somebody has your site, the your site still gets marred?
Good. It's a very good question. We'll take a look at the Gabbai handbook in just a minute. We'll take a look and see why. That could be that was Rabbi Tab's chesh, but I'm not sure. Okay. Zion. Misha mispalal b'kvias nusach Ashkenaz v'nizdamin lebeis hakneses shemispalal shem nusach Sfard or lehefech Yispalu shmona esrei belachash kafi hergelo, uv'chazaras hashatz yispal kafi anusach shemispal bebeis hakneses, uv'vad shispal mitoch hasiddur. This is not specific to Avelim. It's just a general halacha that it has to do with communal etiquette. If you're davening in a shul where the nusach is different from your nusach, let's say your nusach Sfard, you daven in a nusach Ashkenaz shul, so your Shtila Shmona Esrei should be according to your nusach, and your Chazaras Hashat should be according to the nusach of the Kahal. Because that's what a Shliach Tzibur means. I'm a proxy of the community. The community is nusach Ashkenaz, so I have to conform to that proxyship. Okay, Ches. Avel o yortzeit shehis achru levola beis hakneses at korov leborcho umichrachim lamed al kopanim lomar yishtabach lifnei hateva yiru al kopanim lomar mitzchil la'atzmim baruch shalmar va'ashrei. Says an Avel comes late and he wants to take the Amud at Baruchu, so he's got to at least have time to say baruch shalmar and ashrei, and then he can jump in and take over at yishtabach. V'chein hachazon o yortzeit b'Shabbos shehis achru lavo at korov leborchu yiru al kopanim lomar mitzchil la'atzmim baruch shalmar va'ashrei v'nishmas. And the same thing is true for Shabbos. If you have yortzeit, you want to take the Amud, you have to at least have a minimal skeletal psuke de zimra of Baruch Sha'amar, Ashrei, and then Nishmas. You have to say the whole thing, and especially because our minhag is to start with Shochenad. So you got to get up to Shochenad having already said Baruch Sha'amar, Ashrei, and Nishmas. Okay? Next, Tes. By the way, this is not just for a Shliach Tzibur. It's for anybody. Right? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this halacha. People just jump in wherever they want to jump in. Tes, umi she'eni yodea li hispala kol atfili hispala kol apachos ashrei uval etzion. Like we saw in the Ramah, you can say just from ashrei, he says over here ashrei. Okay?
This is ashrei here.
Uval etzion. Okay, that's the way he understood the Ramah, like we did. Yud. Afilu misha adayin lo hispal kagon sheicher lov lebeis hakneses umatzat tzibur mispalel im ashrei uval etzion ve'en lo acher kach minin acher lihispalel yachol lihispalel lifnei ha'amud ashrei uval etzion v'lomer acher of kaddish. He says this is a chiddush. He says if a person comes late to shul and he's not going to find a later minyan, and they're already up to chazaras hashatz, okay, he's allowed to, even though he hasn't davened yet, he can start with saying ashrei lamnatseach and uval etzion, and say the Kaddish Tiskabel at the end of that. It's a big chiddush because it's Tiskabel Tzolosam is what he's saying. Even though he wasn't part of that minyan, he can still say, may our prayer be accepted. Right? But he's saying it on behalf of the Tzibur, even though he himself has not davened yet. And then he can say Kaddish, Umash Omer Tiskabel Tzolosam Koyat Tfilos Kol Yisrael. You see, it says, the fact that he says Tiskabel Tzolosam, may our prayer be accepted, even though I haven't prayed, he's referring to the prayers of Klal Yisrael in general, not just specifically to his prayer. Yud Aleph im nisacher havelu ba acher hascholas lam natseach yachol lahaschol mei uval etzion. This guy, we're really going out of our way for this schlepper, right? I mean, I would probably say to him, what are you doing coming so late to davening? All right, so he must have had some emergency. I don't think we can do this for a guy who consistently comes late. But he says if this is the one day he came late, and he even missed Ashrei and Lam Natseach, he can even jump in at Uval Etzion. Which is a big chiddush. Big chiddush. Yeah. He's quoting here the El Yerabah. Okay, next, Yud Beis. Yesh Mekomos. Sheyesh lem takana beveis hakneses she'ein manichim la'avel lispal kol ha'shavu lifnei hateva kim l'shliach tzibur ha'kavua shelahem. There are shuls where the minhag is that they have a kavua chazan, a kavua shliach tzibur, and he's the guy that davens every day.
Even if there's available.
Yeah, right. That's because maybe there's, it could be because of fighting or because of certain issues of illiteracy in the community. He says, "V'naseis takana zu mipnei amei haaretz shenem yodim umevinim habrachos v'atfilos v'armatos v'ika zilusa lekach tiknu afilu al hayodim shelo yispalu mishum delo leisi li'insuye," and therefore in lidchos hatakana. He says, why did they come up with this takana? I was recently at a shul where they called me up for maftir, and I'm perfectly capable of laning the haftorah. But they said, no, our minhag here is that we have a bal kriya lane every haftorah, shelo levayesh misha ein lo, right? To not to embarrass a person who can't recite it properly. And that's, in many shuls, that would be the policy for leading the davening also. It's all, I mean, thank God we live in a time and in a community where people are, Baruch Hashem, quite literate. But, but it could happen. Achein b'makom deleka takano mina kavua mitzvah lekahal lahaniach la'avel lihispalo shu nachas ruach lameis u'matzil midina shel gehenim. But if that's not if there's no such pre-existing minhag, it is proper for the kahal to allow a person who's in avelos to sit to daven and give nachas ruach to their deceased, to their loved one, and to save them from Gehenna. V'hamoicha ba'avel kilu mocha ba'adam ilasus mitzvah u'cheilu gozel hames. Now, he's a very strong language over here, because we saw that this is a little bit controversial, because we saw in the Chachmas Adam that in reality a kahal can stop a guy. They would say, no, you're not merutza lakol. But he says if you gratuitously prevent a person from davening, leading the davening, meaning that you don't have a strong basis for doing so, you're preventing a person from doing a mitzvah, and you're also stealing from the nifter, because he's not getting that zuchus of tefillah. But if a guy really can't pronounce the letters properly, he should not take the amud, and the tzibur does have a right to take him to task and not do that. So I'm going to let you do the rest of the shiur. One second, we only have a couple more halachas, so let's just finish it off. Yud Gimel, Kol mi sheyesh lo zechus yoser li'inyan kaddish kagon ben shivu ben shloshim v'yard side yesh lo zechus li'inyan tefillah gamkin zval lifnei ha'amud v'dinei kedima nisparu b'perak nun hey. He's already explained the laws of kedima as far as shiva, shloshim, and yud beis chodesh. We saw in the Aruch HaShulchan that is a machlokes whether shloshim trumps yard side or yard side trumps shloshim. Our minhag is that shloshim trumps yard side, with certain exceptions that we'll get to in momentarily, Gerard. Yud Dalet, v'im yesh shnei avelim shavim, im yicholim shneim lihispala lifnei ha'amud shneim merutzim lahakol, yatilu b'neihem goral, ba'ofen zeh she'echad yispalal ad asher yubal etzion, v'hasheni yispalal asher yubal etzion.
Why doesn't he split the Yishtabach?
Because Psukei Zimra is garnished. There's no real kaddish in Psukei Zimra. He says, therefore, if you have two avelim, and they're both equally qualified, they're both equally merutza lakahol, they're both fine people, so flip a coin is basically what he says. Flip a coin.
Gabai's choice.
Or Gabai's choice. He doesn't say that, but he says flip a coin. And
But Harold's question is good. We split on Shabbos. We split in Yishtabach. Why is it different?
What do you mean?
Look at the Zimmer guy and then the Shulchan Aruch guy.
Because you say,
Why during the night?
That's not splitting. A lot of times we give a guy who has yortzeit psukei d'zimra on Shabbos because he's not merutza lakahol to lead the melodic. He doesn't have the melodic needs for the kahal on Shabbos.
Well, generally speaking, why? Like when we were kids in Eitz Chaim, we used to split Yishtabach.
Some shuls do Yishtabach.
But that's
And
kids. But that's for kids. Because the kids don't have a chiyuv.
I'm just
That's
asking.
chiyuv, that's not.
Following up on his question.
Marvin, some shuls do Yishtabach.
Yeah?
Okay.
So Rabbi, are you saying that if someone's got yortzeit and they, during the week and they can't do the main shachri, it's a higher level to give them that little ashrei uvel etzion rather than Shliach Tzibur?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, correct. That is, 100%. Because they have the Kaddish Tiskabel. Okay. Now, the im ha'echad eni yachol lihispalel, o she'ein manichem lo machmas takanas ha'kehila, v'hasheni yachol lihispalel, mikol malkom lo hifsid zechuso bekadishim zeh she'ispalel kivin sha'sheni eni yachol lihispalel. He says if one person is unable to daven, he still is entitled to recite Kaddish, even when they split the Kaddishes among themselves. And if one person is not merutza lakol, he doesn't lose his rights to say Kaddish. He just loses his rights to whatchamacallit, there's a whole bunch more. We're not going to be able to finish the whole thing because there's a whole other page ahead of us. So anyway, we'll just finish off until the bottom of the page. Avolim gam sheni yochol lispalal l'shoditer al zchus l'tova zeh sheyispalal yesh lo yoser zchus b'kadishim. Uv'chol zeh inaf gemina b'makom asher gilim kulam lamar kaddish b'yachad. He says if one person says, you know what, I'm mevater, you do the whole davening, then he gets more rights in Kaddish, but that's only when they split the Kaddishes. If they don't split the Kaddishes, then it doesn't make a difference. Now, imrodze levater zuchusa lechavero. But if he wants to be mevater, so he writes like this: Misha kodem lechaveru le'inyan kaddish u'tefila ein lo lasos chesed im chaveru levater lo zechuso im lo b'makom shemesharon shechaveru yitztar ma'od al zeh. He says, if I have, according to the established minhag, I have more rights to lead the amud than the other guy. it's not worthwhile to be mevater and to let him take it, because it'll only create more machloikes, unless I see that he really is going to be upset about it. In other words, a person has to use his own seichel. And the reason is he writes in the footnote, the kiven the hazchus hazeh shayach lahamet umuvor paposkim dechol mishom merkadish hamagia lachaver hareze gozel es hameis ein yochol haben levater al zechus shel hameis ha ein adam ochel davar sheino shalo. The Emek Bracha gives a beautiful svara. He says, I'm perfectly willing to be mevater so that you can lead the davening, because I know you want it so badly, even though I have kedima to you. But I don't have a right to do that because I'm willing to be mevater. But what about the person for whom I'm saying Kaddish? Maybe they're not mevater on the zuchus that Kaddish would create for them. So therefore, I shouldn't be so quick to be mevater. That's the counter argument. But again, if you see that he's going to be upset by it, it's going to hurt him, it's not going to be able to have kavana, so then maybe you should give it up for him. Finally, let's just take a look at the Gabai's handbook. Thank you again, Marvin. So section 610, weekdays prioritization of davening. A male member in Shloshim has first right to act as Shliach Tzibur at Shachris and Mincha. And the handbook says this because the assumption is that Shiv is going to be davened in the Yovel's house. Okay? It is the policy of our shul to allow a member with yahrzeit for a parent to daven Ma'ariv, even if there is an Ovel in his Shloshim present, provided the Ovel is informed of the policy and agrees to give permission. So, in other words, Shloshim trumps yahrzeit in our shul, but we make exceptions as long as there's no machlokes. We make exceptions for the Ma'ariv of the yahrzeit, and it could be because of the whole issue of the din is.
But it's not for a brother.
There's no distinction made between. As you'll notice.
Here it says parent. It doesn't say for a
One
brother
second,
or
one
a
second.
child or wife.
It says
A male
with the
member-
yahrzeit for a parent.
Or a wife.
Middle.
Oh, yahrzeit for a parent, but shloshim there's no distinction.
Right.
Right. For shloshim there is no distinction, as you notice. Gaboim have experienced the problem of members who have yahrzeit asking for or even taking the amud for mincha and shachris when there is a member in shloshim present. This puts everyone in an awkward position. It should be made clear to all that a member in shloshim takes precedence for shachris and mincha, and the member in shloshim should be discouraged from yielding the amud, like we just saw in the Emek Bracha, from yielding the amud for shachris mincha to a member who has yahrzeit. The last part of shachris from Ashrei on can be given to the yahrzeit if the member in shloshim agrees. Next, if there are no male members in shloshim, the yahrzeit has kedima to daven even if there is an avel present. So again, a guy's in the year, but the yahrzeit takes precedent of Yud over Yud Beis Chodesh. Okay? If there are no male members in shloshim and no yahrzeit, a male member who is an avel for a parent has priority to daven shachris Yud Beis Chodesh for a parent. Okay? If there is more than one member with a yahrzeit for a parent, spouse, or child, the davening will be allotted as fairly as possible at the sole discretion of the Gaboim. Yahrzeit for a father takes precedence over yahrzeit for a mother. Okay, and therefore it's father, mother, and then presumably spouse, sibling, child would be the prioritization or something akin to that. But again, discretion is granted to the Gabai. So therefore, if the Gabai feels that someone who has yahrzeit for a child is going to be broken up because they can't take the amud, the Gabai should use his discretion to figure out how to fairly allot it so that everyone feels that they've had a chelek.
But generally, we only give the amud to people with the yahrzeit for a parent. That's what we generally
So
do.
many others.
No, he says if there is more than one member with yahrzeit for a parent, spouse, or child, the davening will be allotted as fairly as possible at the sole discretion of the Gaboim. That's the minhag. Next.
Why is there a difference for father or mother?
Because it's a higher level. There's an additional mitzvah of kibbud av v'aim.
No, father versus mother.
Oh, why father versus mother?
Why not mother?
Because when there's a conflict between father and mother, the mitzvah of kibbud av v'aim for a father goes above that, the mitzvah of kibbud av v'aim for a mother. That's the Gemara in Kiddushin.
Yeah. Ishi Mavav Yitzirah.
No, but then it says even the mother has a
Mother.
gift too.
No, but I'm asking if there's two members, one's a father, one's a mother.
Based on life, so.
If there's one member has yahrzeit for a father, another member has yahrzeit for a mother, the person with yahrzeit for a father has kedima over the person. It seems that way. Even though it's not mukhrach, you could argue not that way because the Gemara's argument is only when the parents are married. But nonetheless, it seems from the poskim that even when they're two totally different people, from different families, yortzeit for a man trumps yortzeit for a woman. Don't ask me why, I don't know the reason.
And these
No.
members being a member, it seems like we're the Ramallah that has minhag, whatever the minhag is.
Whatever the minhag is. Well, let's see what the Gabai's handbook says.
Oh, let's see what the real halacha.
Yeah, that's the real halacha. Because remember, it's according to the minhag. No mourners are to daven on the following days: Shabbos, Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, Shachris, and Mincha, Purim, Yom Ha'atzmaut. Shachrit only due to saying Hallel. Yom Yerushalayim, Shachrit only due to saying Hallel.
Mourners include yard sites?
No, it doesn't include yard sites. You can daven. You can take the Yomad on a yard site, even on a Shabbos.
It's your side, you go to the Purim.
What if the person insists on taking the Amud for a yard site on Shabbos and he's not Marutz L'Rabbin?
So then he can't. That's right. That's precisely, he has to be Merutza L'Kol.
Lousy.
You're right. You're right.
We've had this many years.
We've had to deal with it. Yeah, okay, listen.
My mother's your sites on Shmini Atzeret.
Yeah, people have shoes.
Okay, male members who are in Shloshim are allowed to daven Mincha on Rosh Chodesh. When Rosh Chodesh is 2 days, then this applies only to the Mincha on the second day of Rosh Chodesh. Okay, I don't know why. It could be because Mincha on the first day, since it's going into a second day Rosh Chodesh, has a higher level of Kedusha, whereas
The
Mincha
second day is the real Rosh Chodesh.
Mincha on the second day is already going into Chol, and therefore it's like an alleviation of the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh. I'm not sure.
Why Chanukah Marav? You can have a,
Because Chanukah Ma'ariv is like it doesn't have any inherent kedusha. It's mostly a Yom Chol.
But then why not Pesukei Zimra? Because you said earlier that Pesukei
So anyone can do Psukei Dezimra.
Yes, so that's
Anyone.
yes. So it's just a minhag or policy of the shul that these people can't do Pesukei Zimra.
No. Anyone can do. Even a person in Avelos can do Psukei Dezimra because Psukei Dezimra doesn't even require a Shliach
No,
Tzibur.
but that's what I'm saying. But they won't allow it. It's just
No,
pure-
we haven't seen anywhere where the shul doesn't allow it. It just says they are not supposed to lead the davening. Leading the davening begins at Yishtabach.
I didn't understand the answer for Chanukah Marav. Isn't like that important?
Apparently, no. Because remember, even on Rosh Chodesh, an Avil is technically allowed to daven Mincha and Ma'ariv. There are certain shuls with them where the minhag is because Rosh Chodesh is quasi kadosh, so we preclude an Avil.
I guess Chanukah has no Muslim.
Chanukah doesn't even have Musaf, right?
Important.
Okay. If there are no chiyuvim of any kind among our members at Minyan, the Gaboim have the sole discretion to give kiburim to chiyuv non-members who are related to one of our members. Laser, you saw that?
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Okay, you have to. So the first shlav is member. Second shlav is non-member related to a member.
He doesn't live in the area permanently.
Well, that does it. I didn't see that.
Third level is
You're-
no relation at all.
Third level, if there are no chiyuvim of any kind from our members and none for relatives of our members, then the Gaboim at their discretion may ask a non-member who is a chiyuv to daven or take a kibud. Shlav Gimel, a non-member bichlal.
At the discretion of the
It's a non-usher.
Yes, but don't be an auction, right?
Just follow the
Yeah.
rule.
Why
That's
do we get in
all.
trouble for doing
Who
it?
doesn't come,
A
who
psicha,
does
Agbat,
not
Lila.
come regularly,
It does not come regularly.
right?
What's regular?
No, because the big difference, if you have a person that comes in, he's from Kitchener, he needs a place to daven, it's different than a person who davens here all year round, he's not a member.
Yeah, there are, if a person comes all year and doesn't take membership, there's certainly a resentment that builds against that person for exploiting or just,
He would not be somebody that the Kehila would want to
he
daven.
might not be Merutza Lakol. I understand that completely.
But you don't know if he made a donation or not, you don't know.
And we had such an incident in the last year.
I understand. It's,
I heard it's Bar Halacha that's a Choshen Mishpat issue.
it is a Choshen Mishpat issue. Yeah, you have to become a member of the Kahal where you daven. Yeah.
The Rav gave that.
I gave that to Var Halacha, yes. But I mean, I'm not getting into that now. We're just going into the taking of the Amud now. Because that's Bichlal, forget about whether you're going to take the Amud for Avelis or not. There's a Choshen Mishpat Inyan that you have to pay for the community services to the community which you are utilizing, whose services you are utilizing. That'll be another shir. Okay. If there are non-members who are related to members and who are in shloshim or have a yortzeit, and there are members present who are chiyuvim, which means like they're in the Yud Beis Chodesh, The Gaboim have the sole discretion to ask the members with chiyuvim their permission to allow these non-members to daven. The members asked have a right to refuse. So essentially, what the policy is stating is, according to the letter of the law, members always trump non-members, regardless of the level of avelus of the non-member. But Zayamensh, Shoa Bissel Hashchanasas Orchim, if a guy who's coming, and he's not a member of the shul, and he's related, and he's coming from Kitchener, like you said, Laser, and he's in Shloshim, Zayamensh, let him have the davening. But you got to get permission. Like you said, it's got to be Marutza Lakol.
Sometimes a lady is a member, and her brother doesn't live in the community, and we're sitting Shiva or Shloshim, he's from out of town, but the lady's a member.
Yeah. Finally, non-members who attend davening on a regular basis who are chiyuvim may be asked to daven and should be encouraged to meet with the membership committee. I guess if they consistently turn down the opportunity to meet with the membership committee, then it becomes an issue of Eino Marutza Lakol. Again, I'm not, you know.
A difference in halacha with someone who's in Zion Ovel, right? When he comes here, this is not, isn't there a difference between sitting Avelis in your house and coming here? Isn't there a Moshe that talks about the difference?
It could be. I'm not familiar with the Rav Moshe.
That in fact he's no different. He doesn't have that kashivas necessarily, or whatever. That's the wrong word. I just remember.
What if he can't get a minion in his house?
That's different.
No, I'm saying, like, I mean, a guy's a member of the shul. He's not a regular.
No, I'm not talking about a member of the shul. I'm talking about a member, somebody who comes out of town and he has a parent. The parent's not even a member of the shul.
Right.
And he comes and they start, davening all the davening because they're in Avelis. Right?
No, so we would tell him our members take priority, but
No,
certainly.
that's all I'm asking.
So members always take priority.
Even
Even for someone in
Shiva.
Shiva. Absolutely.
I'm not talking,
But
but if he's like a brother of
yeah, listen, we've had it many times. A very frum guy comes from Eretz Yisrael. His mother passed away here. She wasn't from. He needs a place to say Kaddish. The rest of the family's not from. So he comes here for Shiva because she passed away in
But he's not a
Thorndale.
chiyuv to daven, is he?
Well, he is a chiyuv in the sense that he's mitten Shiva. So the thing is like this. Out of menschlichkeit, out of hachnasas orchim, we should make room for him, even if there are other chiyuvim. And that it's the proper thing to do. Should he have all of the davening? No, we shouldn't have all of the davening. Give him a mincha, give him a ma'ariv, give him a half a shacharis until Ashrei, or give him from Ashrei onwards.
We had this example. Some people were in Shloshim and suddenly somebody comes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair. In the sense that someone in Shloshim is a member of the shul and somebody comes.
I agree. If someone's in
I'm not saying
Shloshim,
he shouldn't have davening, but he shouldn't have all of the davening.
right, correct. He should not have all the davening by no stretch. Absolutely not. Yeah.
We'll print and translate the vision Saref's thing and give it to everybody.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Chill out.
Chill out, man. Chill out, dude. Yeah. Okay. Have a good evening, everyone.